Welcome. It is Verdict with Senator Ted Cruz, Ben Ferguson with you. It's so nice for you to join us today, and we've got a lot to talk about. The world's talking about Iran right now, Senator, and we've got updates on where we are in this war with Iran.
Well, we're in week 2 of the war with Iran, and I will say the successes continue to build up. If you look at the first day of this conflict, Iran launched 350 ballistic missiles. By day 8, that had dropped to 15.
Yeah.
The second day of this conflict, Iran launched 541 drone attacks. By day 8, that had dropped to 12. What we have done in less than 2 weeks now, we have taken out Iran's air defenses. We've taken out their missile launching capacity. We have taken out their missiles. We have taken out their missile manufacturing. We've taken out their drone launch capacity. We have taken out their drones. We have taken out their drone manufacturing. If you look at their Navy, virtually every ship in their Navy has been sunk to the bottom of the ocean. That effect in less than 2 weeks is profound.
All right, so we are doing a dual podcast. If you are listening right now to the Ben Ferguson podcast, I actually thought I was going to take a little bit of time off during spring break, but then the war broke out in Iran. So Senator Cruz and I are doing a dual podcast right now that you are hearing, both of us, and we've got a lot to bring you on what's happening in Iran and some other issues as well. All right, Senator, so let's play for everybody.
Let me interrupt you right now, Ben. So you're right now in Kaaba.
I am. That's true. Yes, that's true.
And I just want to thank you on behalf of every Verdict listener, but especially the Verdict viewers. So there are a lot of Verdict viewers who watch on YouTube, who watch on Facebook. And I just want to say I'm really glad that you are not in a Speedo right now.
I am not. I am in a suit, a jacket.
Or even worse, a Borat.
A Borat, yes.
That like covers the equipment and goes over your shoulders. I'm just going to say, to be honest, we don't know if you're in a Speedo or Borat because the camera shot is only chest up.
Yeah, this is what you call hazing when Senator Cruz is in Washington.
One of us
DC,
is at
and
work.
I'm in Cabo.
Like I've spent the whole day in the Senate. I'm working. By the way, it's your spring break. It's my spring break.
Yeah.
My girls were skiing on spring break. I went for a day and a half. And then got on a plane, and I flew back to Washington, D.C., because some of us have a job.
Yeah, I know.
And
I'm proud of you. I want you to know that I'm proud of you. As I was sitting on the beach today,
Benjamin has had 19 daiquiris today. and if I asked him to walk in a straight line and spell the alphabet backwards, he couldn't do so.
I did have 2 Miami Vices today, just in honor of you. I knew you would appreciate it.
I don't even know what a Miami Vice is.
That's just sad. I'll introduce you the next time we're hanging out in Cabo.
What is a Miami Vice?
It's a pina colada strawberry daiquiri together. They call it a Miami Vice.
Okay, that's just weird.
As I'm sitting here in Cabo, I mean this sincerely. I just don't care. That's how happy I am.
All right, so play Pete Hegseth.
All right, so here we go. Here's Pete Hegseth. We're going to start with Pete Hegseth giving an update on the war. I want you to take a listen to what he had to say about where we are now and what is happening. Take a listen to this.
On day 10 of Operation Epic Fury, we are winning with an overwhelming and unrelenting focus on our objectives, which are the same as the day I gave my first briefing here on Operation Epic Fury. They're straightforward, and we are executing them with ruthless precision. 1, destroy their missile stockpiles, their missile launchers, and their defense industrial base. Missiles and their ability to make them. 2, destroy their Navy. And 3, permanently deny Iran nuclear weapons forever. It's a laser-focused, maximum authority mission delivered with overwhelming and unrelenting precision. No hesitation, no half measures.
Well, let me ask you this, Senator. As you hear him lay that out, I want to know what the pulse is in D.C. as you guys are there talking about this. I'm still trying to figure out what exactly the Democrat talking point is. I've seen like 4 or 5 of them that they've been kind of throwing jello at a wall to see if anything will stick. They're obviously wanting to hurt Donald Trump in this or trying to say he's going to get us into forever war. it's not really working. So what are your colleagues saying in the Senate about this? And also among Republicans as well. There's even been there was an interesting moment, by the way, where like they were trying to bait you into trashing Lindsey Graham, and others are trying to turn Republicans against Republicans. And as I was sitting here on the beach drinking my Miami Vice, I enjoyed watching you have to deal with that on TV because I just got to be a spectator. It was great.
Yeah, look, last night I was on Laura Ingraham, and Laura's a friend, and she's supporting President Trump in this military conflict. But she asked a whole series of questions about, aren't you upset that it's been reported that Lindsey Graham was talking to Prime Minister Netanyahu? And she basically said, isn't Lindsey acting as a lobbyist for Israel? And I said, Laura, with all due respect, no, and that's really a silly question. Listen, Lindsey, I agree with Lindsey on some issues. I disagree with Lindsey on other issues. You look at the Iraq War, Lindsey was a big proponent of the Iraq War. I think the Iraq War was a serious mistake. I think it did harm to the United States, and I've said that for a long, long time. So Lindsey and I are on totally different pages when it comes to Iraq. When it comes to Iran, Lindsey and I agree. I think when the Ayatollah says death to America, he means it. I think President Trump is right to act to take out the leadership in Iran, because having radical Islamist leadership that wants to murder Americans is bad for America. The regime in Iran has been the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism for 47 years. They provide 90% of the funding for Hamas, for Hezbollah, and for the Houthis. They've killed nearly 1,000 Americans in the last 5 decades. The Ayatollah, he leads mobs chanting death to America, and he hires 2 different crews of hitmen to try to murder Donald J. Trump.
Yeah, not
now,
one,
by the
but
way,
2. And can
2.
we pause on that for just
and
a second?
one was just convicted in the last week of doing so.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's spend a moment on this, because this is part of the Democrats' talking point, and I've been fighting this pretty hard on TV as well. And they're like, well, there was not a direct threat here. This was not a direct threat to America.
Totally false.
You're now putting people in harm's way. Let's make it very clear on this show, as you described it, not 1 but 2 that we know about were sent to try to take out and kill the President of the United States of America. That came directly from Iran.
And by the way, the hitman told the Department of Justice, I was hired by Iran, I was trained by Iran, and my purpose was to murder President Trump. There's no dispute that it was Iran that was paying for this. And I will note, if you remember last year when I was interviewed by Tucker Carlson, it was an unhinged interview, but he disputed me. He said, no, I've never heard that Iran's trying to murder Donald Trump, which was insane and totally counterfactual. And it's hard to actually argue with someone for whom facts don't matter and they just make up facts. But then Tucker said bizarrely, well, and if Iran was trying to murder Trump, we should attack them now. We should nuke them.
Yeah.
Which was insane. And by the way, I will say in Monday's podcast, we pointed out, Tucker has become such an Islamist shill, such an Israel-hating zealot, such an advocate for every Islamist enemy of America, that he has argued this week that President Trump's demand for unconditional surrender of Iran means that Iran should expect American soldiers to rape their wives and daughters.
Yes.
That is an absolute slander of our American servicemen and women. It is totally false. It is ahistorical. We don't do that. Other armies do that. America does not. And he also argued that he thinks America is going to nuke Iran.
Yeah.
To be clear, that's what jihadist Tucker said in his interview. We should do if Iran was trying to murder President Trump. We now have one of the hitmen convicted in a federal jury for trying to murder Trump. So Tucker's bad faith, disingenuous position is we should nuke them. Of course we should nuke them. We're not going to nuke Iran. That is bizarre. That is wrong. We're also not, there is no circumstance in which American soldiers are going to rape the women of Iran. But do you know who is broadcasting Tucker's broadcast right now?
Literally, Iran state-sponsored media is broadcasting it to their people.
The government of Iran is broadcasting Tucker to their people. The Muslim Brotherhood has retweeted and put out Tucker's broadcast to the world. RT, the press organization of Russia Today, is pushing out Tucker. So you want to talk about a damn effective propagandist for people who hate America. And this is the slippery slope of Jew hate and Israel hate. You start with just hating Israel and Jews, blaming everything bad in the world, it's the Jews. And you very quickly get into the problem is capitalism. By the way, Tucker is now attacking capitalism on a daily basis and he's embraced Comrade Mondami as the mayor of New York. He's defended him repeatedly. He's embraced Nicolas Maduro, the Marxist, America-hating dictator of Venezuela, who Donald Trump went and rightly apprehended for being one of the biggest drug dealers in the world, killing Americans. Tucker is defending him. And that pattern is incredibly dangerous. We're seeing it play out every day.
By the way, side note, this is going to be interesting. I want you to guess in 2000, this would probably be 2009, 8 or 9, my big, to date, right now, the biggest contract I've ever been offered in my entire life to do radio or TV, do you know who it was from?
I'm guessing Tucker, and what I want to ask is, did you have to buy a home in Qatar like he has done?
No, that's a good guess, but no, it was not. My biggest offer in the history of my career was RT. They were trying to hire conservatives. And so in 2000, whatever year they came into America in the marketplace.
What? How much did they offer you?
Oh, dude, it was 7 figures. I mean, I don't remember.
Like seriously?
Like instant get rich money. So
like they offered you over $1 million.
Yes, over $1 million. So
to say Vladimir Putin is wise and a damn good looking man.
So this is how they entrap people as I describe it. In the Bush years, I get a phone call from a former worker / TV executive from Fox News Channel. And they said, hey, I've moved on to something else. I'd love to meet with you. I'm like, sure, more than happy to meet. I'd worked with him before at Fox News Channel. Like, okay, no big deal. I go to lunch in D.C. That's where I was living at the time. And she hands me her card, and she's working for RT. And I'm like, RT, like Russia Today? And she's like, yes. And she's like, we would love to have you come on and just give your viewpoint. We would never tell you what to say. We would never tell you what to, we want you to just be exactly who you are. We want a fair and balanced conversation about the world. We think you would be great. I'm still in shock. I'm like looking for cameras. I'm waiting for somebody to come out from the side room, we got him. And I'm like, I literally looked, I was like, there's no amount of money that is going to make me work for I think I said Vladimir Putin. They were like, well, here's the offer. And they slid it across the table. It was like a scene out of the movie, and I opened it. It was 7 figures. And I literally
you remember the number? Tell me what 7 figures means. Do you remember?
It was well over $1 million per year, but it was a multi-year deal. So it was like
$1.1 million, $1.9 million.
I can't remember if it was I want to say again a long time ago. I want to say it was like $1 million, 2 or 3, and that was their first offer
per year.
So I leave the meeting. And I'm like, look, I'm not going to do it, but thanks. I just think about it, and I'm like, I'm not going to do it, but thanks. They're like, well, if you ever want to come on as a guest or if you ever change your mind. So I leave, and I called John Ashcroft at the time. He was the former Attorney General. I was like, John, I just got offered money from Vladimir Putin. He was started chuckling like Santa. He was like, Russia Today? I was like, yeah. He's like, you're like the 8th person that's called me today to tell me in the last week they're getting an offer from Russia Today because they're trying to legitimize themselves in America for their propaganda. And then they were on TV until they invaded Ukraine. And then RT fired everybody in America. But I knew people that took the money and got rich. I knew legit people yeah, I'll take the Russian cash. No problem. That is, by the way, the reason why I bring that up is because with Tucker Carlson, when everybody's like, well, is there really money to be made to be anti-America or anti-Israel? Yes, there is lots of money that people are getting paid. I don't know who's getting paid, but a lot of people are getting paid. So just know that money is real.
So by the way, we know that of foreign funders for U.S. universities,
yeah,
the number one country in the world, do you know what it is?
Is it China?
Nope.
Really? Russia?
Nope.
Iran?
Nope.
All right, who is it?
Qatar.
Oh, okay, there you go.
$6.6 billion with a B.
6.6 billion comes from Qatar to our universities.
To our universities. You want to know why our universities are so rabidly anti-American, so rabidly anti-Semitic, so rabidly anti-Israel, so rabidly anti-capitalism, so rabidly you look at the anti-Semitic protests that we had on college campuses all across the country.
Yeah.
Did any of you notice that the tents all matched?
Yeah, there you go.
And to be clear, Qatar, by the way, it's been publicly reported, they hired spies to spy on me.
Yeah.
They view me as their biggest opponent in Washington. And listen, it's very simple. I don't have anything against the Qataris, other than that they welcome and host. Hold on, let me finish this. I don't have anything against the Qataris, other than that they welcome and host the senior leadership of Hamas. They live like billionaires. They live in lavish luxury. They support Hamas. They encourage Hamas. They fund Israel haters, America haters, communists, people tearing America down. They propagandize our kids. I'm perfectly happy to welcome the Qataris into the society of civilized nation if they will stop funding people trying to destroy America. And I don't take it kindly when you write lots of checks to people who hate America and are trying to destroy our nation. I view that as less than friendly conduct.
Yeah, frowned upon. By the way, to everyone in Qatar that's a spy listening right now, I just want you to know, and this is a compliment, Ted's life is very boring sometimes. He's
really
is.
Pretty
methodical. It's not. There's nothing exciting happening there. I just want to be clear.
All right. Can I tell a story?
Yes,
and it's a story some of our podcast listeners will remember. So back in 2016, when I'm running for president, and it's getting down to the end of the race, and it's me and Donald Trump, and we're neck and neck, and in that race, I won 12 states. Trump won 24. And no other Republican won more than a single state. Kasich won Ohio, Rubio won Minnesota, and Trump and I won every other state in the country. And in the course of that campaign, there was a story that broke in the National Enquirer that said I was having 5 simultaneous affairs. And this was front page, big story. Cruz caught.
Yes.
And look, Ben, you know my wife, Heidi.
I do.
I had to call Heidi. And for anyone married, let me say to everyone listening and watching this pod, if you're married, I got to tell you, it sucks to pick up the phone and call your spouse and say, sweetheart, so there's a front page story that is in every checkout aisle of every supermarket in America that said, I'm having 5 simultaneous affairs. And I adore Heidi. She's my best friend in the world. But I was nervous about this call. That is not a fun. If you had to call Anna and say that, that would be a call that sucked.
Yeah, that's not.
So I make the call. Do you know Heidi's reaction?
Well, I know this story, and I know exactly the reaction, which is the best part about the whole story.
Heidi burst into uproarious laughter. She's like doubled over laughing. And I actually got offended. I'm like, sweetheart, it's not true, but damn it, I could. I mean, like, what are you saying? I didn't, but
you're that undesirable. That's what she's saying right there. There's no way.
And I gotta say, for the Qatari spies, I think they were frustrated because, look, I have dinner many nights in D.C. at Capitol Grill. You and I have had dinner many times there.
Yes.
We had my political opponents.
In fact, to be clear, I don't think you and I have ever had dinner anywhere else in D.C. but there. That's how mundane it is.
Okay.
Are there any other restaurants that even exist in D.C. in your world?
No.
Okay,
no.
Just checking. I want to make sure.
Look,
if you're cheating on anybody, it's Capitol Grill. That would be the story.
Okay. I'm a homebody. Listen, when I was in law school, I lived in the dorms. Hemingway, I lived in Hastings Hall, which is a dorm. I lived there 3 years. Right next to it was Hemingway Gym, and then right next to it was Gannett House, was the Law Review. That triangle was maybe 300 yards.
Yeah.
I spent almost every waking moment of 3 years of law school in that triangle between my dorm, the gym, and the Law Review. That was basically, I would go to class occasionally, but it was essentially that triangle. DC, I rarely, like Cap Grill is 6 blocks away from the Capitol. I rarely go beyond that radius.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, in 2016, my opponents, and more than one of my opponents, was like flashing major chunks of cash, trying to get Cap Grill waiters and waitresses to like rat on me, like running around and getting busy with some Washington lobby.
They were looking for an Easter, and people don't realize this. This is real in politics. Like they go.
No,
to
they're
where you
dragging through trying to get
and
anything
they hand
they
out
could.
cash to anybody. They'll give them a story so they can report it as someone who says in this world.
And I got to say, like, my life is just pretty damn boring on that.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, I want to take a minute. I want to speak to the men listening to this podcast. I want to share some wisdom. So our pastor is Greg Mott, and actually you now go to our church. You used to go to Second Baptist, you now go to First Baptist. Greg Mott is a wonderful, dear friend. He's a man of God. Before you moved to First, Pastor Greg did a sermon series. It was like, I think, 6 weeks. And it was on King David. And I really enjoyed that sermon series. King David was a remarkable person in the Bible. And I remember he was covering the chapter on Bathsheba. And if you remember, King David is standing on the roof of his palace, and he looks down and he sees Bathsheba, the most beautiful woman in the land. And he gazes upon her, and he ultimately ends up bringing her in and sending her husband Uriah to the front lines and killing him and sleeping with her and then marrying her. And God extracts a price of killing her firstborn son, although her next son was King Solomon, so he did continue the line. But Pastor Greg is talking about, and he just stops. He says, all right, I want to talk to all the men in the congregation. And he says, you may think you're strong.
By the way, if you're listening to this podcast and you want to hear Greg Mott's voice, like go listen to one of his sermons, and you'll understand how good he is at delivering these types of lines. Continue.
And by the way, Pastor Greg started his ministry. He was a student at Texas A&M, and he started a little Bible study in his dorm room or his apartment. Yeah. And it started with a few students. It grew into what's called Breakaway, and he would have 10,000 students a week meeting in the basketball gymnasium. So where we go to church, First Baptist Church, is an institution in Houston. I went there as a little kid. Dr. John Basagno was the pastor 40 years ago, and he was a Houston institution. By the way, the church was founded. Do you know the story? Do you know when the church was founded?
No.
So the church was founded, I don't know the exact year, but Texas was an independent nation between 1836 and 1845. And First Baptist Church of Houston was founded somewhere in that 9-year period. I don't remember the year. And Pastor Greg said one time, he said, look, this church was actually founded by American missionaries who were coming to a foreign nation, and the foreign nation was the Republic of Texas. So American nations went from America to the Republic of Texas, and they founded the church. Anyway, what he said to the men in the church, and by the way, so Pastor Greg built up Breakaway, and it was getting 10,000 students a week to come to this Bible study at A&M. And then when Dr. Basagno retired, First Baptist did a search, who's our new pastor? And they actually found Pastor Greg. He was 33 years old. And they brought him in. He'd never pastored a church. He just led this Bible study at A&M. They brought him in, and he's led. Pastor Greg and I are exactly the same age. We're both 55. And they brought him in and he's become our pastor. And he's a great pastor, but what I admire most about him is he's incredibly humble.
Yes.
Heidi doesn't like mega churches. She grew up in a very small church in the Central Coast of California. She likes small, intimate churches where you have 40 people there on Sunday morning, like where everyone knows everyone. And First Baptist is a huge church. The only reason we go there is because she likes Pastor Greg so much that she's just like, all right, I will endure the large apparatus.
Crowd. Yeah.
But part of the reason she likes him and I like him is he is genuinely humble and he's a godly man. He's a lot of pastors of mega churches are frankly arrogant. I mean, hubris. Yeah. Look, hubris is
they become rock stars in a bubble.
Pride is a temptation in the ministry. It's a temptation in politics. It's a temptation in the media. It's easy when you're surrounded by adulation to believe it. And it's hard to resist it. And I will say Pastor Greg does an amazing job. He and I spend every month, actually something we've started this year, which I'm really grateful for. He's begun coming over to my house once a month, Sunday afternoons or evenings, just to have a Bible study and prayer session together, which I'm grateful for. But anyway, his David sermon, when he talks about Bathsheba, he says, I want to talk to the men in the congregation. And he said, you may think you're strong. You may think you have integrity, you have resolve. And he said, I want to tell you, when temptation presents itself, run! Run! Just get away. He said the mistake David made is he's on the roof of his palace, he's looking down, and he kept watching. What David should have done is turn around. And by the way, the Bible describes David as a man after God's own heart. And he said David should have turned around and just gotten himself out of that.
So before we wrap, I want to get back to something else, political world, that I do think is important for us to cover real quick. And that is the one thing that the Democrats seem to be being able to grab on and something tangible here is gas prices. I know you've been around the president. I know you're in D.C. Yep. The president's been pretty clear about this. This is going to be short-term increase. Democrats do seem to be latching onto this. Like, remember when egg prices was like a big thing in the political world?
Yep.
This is the new egg price thing, right? Oh my gosh, Donald Trump says he's going to lower price at the pump for you. Look at it now. Look how bad it is now. It's going to be, $10 a gallon in California. It's going to be $5-6 a gallon everywhere else. The president's come out and says it's going to be short term. I believe him. I think also seeing how hard we're hitting Iran right now is also showing the timeline here that they are wanting to do everything as fast as they can. Why drag this out? Go all in, do it quickly, get the pain over with, and let those people hopefully rise up and take over Iran and actually move forward. Are you that worried about the gas prices? I'm not yet. Like, if it's 3 months from now or 2 months from now, I'm going to be more worried. But right now, I feel like this is exactly on schedule or ahead of schedule as the White House has described it.
Yeah. So, look, there's been a short-term increase in gas prices. And any time there's a military conflict in the Middle East, gas prices go up because a lot of oil comes from the Middle East. And so military conflict has an effect on supply and demand. I think this will be short-term. One of the things to remember is, 6 months ago, gas prices were about, I don't have the exact number off the top of my head, but about $2.50 a gallon.
Yeah.
They've risen about $1. They're about $3.50 a gallon. This is national averages. And so it is true that over the last 6 months, gasoline prices have risen. Where were they 18 months ago? Under Joe Biden, they were nearly $6 a gallon. Yeah. So by any measure, they're massively cheaper than Joe Biden. Yes, they've gone up from about $2.50 to about $3.50. But I think this is a short-term increase. And I got to say, if and when the Iranian regime collapses, and by the way, we've utterly degraded their military and we've taken out the Ayatollah and the senior military leadership, if and when we have a government in Iran that is not a radical theocratic Islamist government who wants to murder America, who is funding terrorists all across the world, who is actively trying to murder Americans every single day. If we have just a normal government, I don't really care who we have, just as long as it's not a crazy person killing Americans. The effect on global gas prices will be to lower them significantly. So I actually think this conflict in the long term or even the medium term will have a substantial downward pressure on gasoline prices. There's a short period where prices have spiked somewhat, although to be clear, they're much, much lower than under Biden, but they are higher than they were 6 months ago under Trump. Look, I think the Democrats are attacking gas prices because they hate Trump, and they're just everything Trump does is wrong. This is an incredibly important decision that Trump has made for advancing U.S. national security. And I will say, part of the reason why, when like I was being questioned on Lindsey Graham, I like Lindsey, as I said, I agree with him sometimes, I disagree with him sometimes. But what the questioning really was about isn't the Iran war about Israel? Isn't this all about Israel? And the suggestion was Israel is a puppet master controlling Donald Trump. That's just a blatant lie. This military conflict has very little to do with Israel. The reason President Trump decided to attack Iran is because Iran has been waging war with America for 47 years, and they've killed nearly 1,000 Americans, and they're the leading state sponsor of terrorism in the world. And so the people trying to say, I don't want another war for Israel, I don't want my children to die for the Jews, that is not honest, because we're doing this because the regime in Iran is killing Americans. And to be clear, if they had the capacity, if they had nuclear weapons, they would kill many, many more Americans. If they could, they would kill you and me right now, Ben. If
No
they
doubt.
could, every listener of this podcast, they would kill. If they had a nuclear weapon, I believe there is a real possibility they would detonate it in the skies of Tel Aviv or New York or Los Angeles. And I'm not interested in seeing a day where hundreds of thousands of Americans are murdered by an Ayatollah chanting death to America. That's why President Trump acted. But it was not about Israel. It was about America. And I think we need to be very, very clear about that.
Yeah, I also think one of the other things that I think is really frustrating is just seeing how many people act as if somehow Donald Trump was hoodwinked by Israel for us to get involved in this war.
Yeah.
And you were asked about that. I was asked about it as well on TV, and I said that is the biggest load of crap I've heard in a long time. President Trump isn't hoodwinked by anybody. President Trump isn't walked around by anyone. And if you've ever been around him, you know that. I think it goes back to what you just said. The president understood the national security risks, not to Israel. All right, they
This
are allies.
is America first.
Correct. It's America and the national security threat to America, including the fact that they're trying to kill and have sent people and trained people and paid people to try to kill the president of the United States of America. Also, people in the last administration, John Bolton, for example, was one of those. There's several others on this list that have actually been, they've had hits
Mike
out
Pompeo,
on them.
Brian Hook.
Yes, exactly. So you go with the list here. The president was clear about this. That this is about America, and I think that's another example when I said there's like 4 or 5 working theories. Democrats throwing Jello at a wall saying, does any of this fit with Americans? I also think it's very interesting, and final thing to you, I don't think the American people are buying this, and part of it's because I think Democrats have just said some of the most outlandish and crazy things on every issue tried to hurt Donald Trump. Now it's becoming a little bit more of white noise, and I'm thankful for that, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. And look, some of the reaction of the voters will depend on how this plays out. If this military conflict lasts many months or years, if we're sitting here a year from now and still mired in a military conflict, if we've got a massive troop presence on the ground, if we have hundreds or thousands of American soldiers being killed, this war will be very unpopular.
Yeah.
I think the chances of that happening are very, very close to 0%. Iran is not Iraq. We're not going to see a massive troop presence on the ground. We're not going to see an extended military occupation. Actually, I want you to listen to Pete Hegseth making this point, and we're going to wrap up on this. Listen to the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth.
You see, this is not 2003. This is not endless nation building under those types of quagmires we saw under Bush or Obama. It's not even close. Our generation of soldier will not let that happen again, and nor will this president, who very clearly ran against those kinds of never-ending, nebulously scoped missions. Those days are dead. Instead, we're winning decisively with brutal efficiency, total air dominance, and an unbreakable will to accomplish the president's objectives on our timeline. We stay locked on the target because here at the Department of War, that's our job.
You listen to Pete there. This is one of the reasons why I actually think it was a blessing that he was named and made it through confirmation. He's a guy that served his country.
He's a combat veteran who's been in harm's way.
Yeah, this is a guy that I think is genuinely in the room advocating to make sure that what happened to a lot of his colleagues when he was serving in uniform and deployed, that doesn't happen to this group of soldiers now. And it's clear that this is personal for him. That's why I'm so thankful that he's there in this position, because he lived the other side of it that he was just describing.
Right. Look, avoiding endless wars does not mean embracing isolationism.
Yeah.
Peace through strength is what Reagan called it. Donald Trump just understands it as being a strong commander-in-chief, that when people are killing Americans, he is going to respond vigorously to take them out. And by the way, our enemies are terrified, as I've said before. At 3 a.m. on January 3rd, there was not a Latin American dictator who didn't have to change his shorts, because that's when President Trump seized Nicolas Maduro. What is happening in Iran, the top leadership has been taken out. Every bad guy, every person who hates America is really, really worried right now, because this is a nation that defends itself. And by the way, that makes clear if you kill Americans, there are going to be massive consequences to it. Barack Obama and Joe Biden's weakness and appeasement that if you kill Americans, oh, well, we're not going to do anything about it, that invites more people to target and kill Americans. This is about avoiding war by being strong enough to take out the people that are killing Americans, and that avoids protracted military conflict. I think that's what we're seeing right now, and it makes America a whole lot safer.
Yeah, no doubt about it. For everybody listening, thank you for joining us as we do a dual pod with the Ben Ferguson podcast and Verdict with Ted Cruz. Don't forget, hit that subscribe or auto-download button wherever you're listening right now. And if you want to watch the show, it's also on YouTube, Verdict with Ted Cruz there. You can watch it on Facebook as well. And we'll see you back here in a couple of days.